Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Caddx Turtle. So this is a all-in-one FPV camera and HD 1080p 60 recorder, so it's doing the same thing as the Runcam Split series, although it's doing it a little bit differently, I think, and I'm glad that it exists because I think in order for this hobby to progress, then we need good competition and we need products like this because, you know, having two cameras on a copter, it's never made sense to me. Of course, you know, we do it for the lowest possible latency and the highest possible quality for the HD recording, but really I would love that to be merged into one, and really it's only Runcam that's been doing it so far. So yeah, this is the Turbo Eye version. It's got a huge field of view of 170 degrees, and unlike the Split Mini, it's a single board. Now this has come from Banggood, this one, but it has got this card, and look at this, it says here, it says worldwide free shipping, 30-day money-back guarantee, 90-day free replacement/exchange, 1-year warranty for parts and repairs, and lifetime free customer support. And considering this is cheaper than the Runcam as well, that's pretty decent, isn't it? So let's see what we have got in this package here. So, as I say, it's a single board, and at first I thought it was a 20 by 20 board, but it's kind of not. It's a 20 by something. Look how staggered those holes are there, and there's some components very close to it as well. Now I do like this connector here. I think they're calling it a DJI coax, but I guess it's better than a ribbon cable, so they're individual cables, and you know, they feel quite robust actually. So we've got the lens up here as well, and this is an M12 lens against the M8 of the Runcam. So it's a micro size, so 19mm, and yeah, we've got this flat back here, and yeah, it's quite a narrow profile actually, which is quite nice. And yeah, just the single board here. Now they have done something different with the controls, so we just have this single button here, and then in here somewhere, actually no, it's here, there is a little controller board, and we've got a wire in here, and that connects in here, and yeah, it's a bit like the, you know, camera controls, I guess you would say, but there's also like an on-screen display built into this as well, so that's different than the Runcam, so you can do your voltage and stuff like that. And the voltage range I think is 4.5 volts up to 20 volts, so yeah, huge voltage range. And we've got a little mount here as well, which I'm not going to be using, and then we have got a bunch of stuff in here. Now there's some interesting plates here. I think these are like a 30 by 30 converter board, but that also looks like shielding, doesn't it? So a problem that these cameras have, well, certainly with the Runcam, is that you can have a completely clean video feed from your copter, and then you add one of these in there, and then you get a load of noise, and perhaps, you know, this is to help with that. But yeah, I think it also converts these holes to 30 by 30. So let's have a look what else you get. I think we have got like an Allen key here, and these are some connectors. Is this silicone? I think it is actually, yeah, I think it's silicon. So looks like this is like your usual Runcam style connector, and then I think, does this go in here? So yeah, if you've already got your copter set up for sort of like a Runcam style thing, then this should plug straight in. So you can see that we have this to go into the controller there, and then this is just your video, and then your VBAT, and then the ground. So it should be a very simple install. Now when I look at this board compared to the instructions, so yeah, they've given like a download for the instructions, the board looks different. We've got some breakout pads here, and one of them says TX and RX on them, and we've got all sorts of things down here as well, like VCC and ground, but this isn't documented at all, so I think perhaps they need to update the documentation, because, you know, I don't know whether the TX and RX is for like camera controls, or if it is for actually, you know, going into the menu or controlling the camera. So, you know, with RunCam, we have RunCam camera settings in Betaflight, but, you know, is this gonna piggyback off the back of that? There's no information on it whatsoever, so I'd like to see some information on that. But yeah, we've got a bunch of tiny screws and tiny standoffs as well, so, you know, little plastic O-rings, I guess, to fit here, maybe to give a bit more space between the components in your standoffs. But yeah, I'm really not sure how this is going to fit, so I'm going to have to try it there. But we have the single button, and I think that starts and stops the recording, but like I say, I'm going to have to just see, because this one is a little bit different compared to the one on their website. Okay, so this is the copter that I'm hoping to put the Turtle in. It is the X140, and there's just loads of space in here, and it's actually the copter that I used for the Split Mini, and it just about fits in there. Now, all of the standoffs that they have given are all screws to sort of screw down into things. It would have been nice to have some, well, like the RunCam ones. Can you see the little brass ones there that stick up? And it does look like this is going to fit over the top here, but the thing is, just this strange standoff position up here means that I've had to remove one of them, so I think it's going to have to stick in the top of your stack, because, you know, there's just no other option really, unless you want to carry on just using 3 standoffs all the way up. But yeah, that just about fits on there, and I thought this connector here was going to be the correct connector if you already have a RunCam plugged in, but it's not. Can you see there? It's the opposite. So if we look at the Split Mini, they gave this little connector. Really, it would have been helpful to have that, but, you know, it's a small thing. I guess I could switch it out. There's absolutely loads of length here for the camera, so that's good, you know, if you've got a fairly long build or something like that. But yeah, it seems like it is just about going to fit on a 20x20 stack. Also, this little connector here as well, it might have been better to actually just have the solder pads, because that really sticks up there. I mean, if I put the plate on the top, we've got way more room than the Split Mini, but at the back, you see, it sort of just lifts up a little bit, and, you know, I think they could have just maybe done solder pads. Just one of these, I think, would have been more useful to get the profile lower. Just another quick thing I want to mention regarding the SD card slot is there's no retainer on it, like there is with the RunCam, so, you know, you could get your card ejecting out of there, so be careful with that. And I think it takes up to a 64GB class 10 card, so I'm going to be using one of those. Okay, so just as I'm fitting the camera in, I've noticed something that could be a problem. You see where the hole for the screw is, and then we have got this sharp edge here. And then if you compare that to the Split Mini, you've got all of this space here. So this is going to come very close to the top plate, I think, in this instance. If you look, if I line up the holes, I'm probably going to have it at a pretty extreme angle or a flat angle, because that is sitting exactly against the top plate, so that's something to watch out for. Okay, so now everything is connected and powered up. Let's check out the menu system. So I got the little controller board connected here, and first of all, I should say I'm seeing a little bit of noise. It's not too bad, but I did expect that with not having any RF shielding, and there's also no capacitor on the 5-volt rail of this copter either. It was the same when I used the Split on this copter, so I can't really complain. But yeah, if I press this button here, we get the menu, and I really like the settings. The first thing I'm going to do is change the aspect ratio to 16:9, and just look how much extra field of view you get there. So Same with the split, really, is that to get the 4:3, it really crops a lot of the image, and I prefer to have it like this. Now, technically it is still a 4:3 image, so I'm looking at this through the Fat Shark goggles, and if you had a native 16:9 goggle, then it would look uber stretched. All it's done is it's using the full field of view that you see when you look back at the recorded footage, and I much prefer that. And then what you can do is put your on-screen display at the bottom and the top where the black borders are, because you're not using the video there anyways. I think it's perfect, and it means that you can frame your video exactly how it's going to look back on the recorded footage, whereas when it's zoomed in like that, you know, you might fly in a sort of different style or a different way because you're not getting the full image. So I really like that they've done that, and it's the same as the Runcam split. So let's go into some of the other options. So we've got the on-screen display settings here. Now I've got this turned off because this copter already has an on-screen display. But as you can see here, we have got a call sign which is currently blank. You do have to go through all of these letters here. But yeah, where it says acro there, if you turn that on, then your call sign will go there. And you can see we can also turn the voltage on, so it's just showing us 5 volts though because it's plugged into 5 volts here. We've got timer as well, but you know, I've got that turned off, so just press exit on there. Then on the video you can see we've got 1080-60, which is what I want, but we've got 30 and we've got 720p 120 frames per second. It seems to have done something to dynamic range there, and it's also cropping a little bit as well, but I'm not really interested in that, but it does it. And yeah, so 1080p6 is what I'm interested in. We've got loop recording. Now auto recording was turned off, but I like it on, so when you plug your battery in, it just starts recording. And it's also got a save feature, so if you disconnect your battery by accident without pressing the off button, then it will still save the video. I think you lose about the last 3 or 4 seconds of the flight, but that's fine. Wide dynamic range, I've got that on. So yeah, that's everything there. And then camera settings, you can change the exposure value, and I've got it set to 0 here, but yeah, if you just press on there, you can see we can do minus and plus if you think that it's overexposed or underexposed. So there's a lot of options there when it comes to the exposure. And then we've got metering mode. I'm going to keep it on multi, but we've got spot and center as well. Then the field of view, high, medium and narrow. Doesn't really change a huge amount there, but yeah, we have got that option. Screen flip, this is awesome because it also flips the on-screen display. I've had to stick this camera in upside down just so there's room for the ribbon cable, and that is brilliant. Light frequency depending on the country, you know, so you don't get your flickering and stuff like that in low light. So just save and exit there. And then image effect, you can see you can change the sharpness, the saturation, the contrast, brightness, just anything you would expect really. Then we can do NTSC or PAL for the source. I'm going to choose NTSC because with the split, I think because it's a slightly lower number of TV lines, the actual latency is better. So I'm going to keep that to NTSC. Then system settings here, so can actually have it not turn on when you plug in. I don't know why I'd want to do that, but there you go. We've got language, the SD card info, and then you can format the SD card. You've got the system info, so that's just going to be the version number, and I do think they are updating it quite frequently. Factory reset and save and exit, and then save and exit here as well. So a fantastic menu, I think. So before I took the Split Mini out of the X140, I actually went for a fly with it. So this is the DVR footage with the Split Mini, and as you can see, there's a little bit of noise when I go up on the throttle with the ESCs, and that is this copter I think it could do with a capacitor on the 5 volt, I think. And then this is the 1080p 60 that the Split Mini records, and I actually slightly bent a shaft on one of the motors, so there's a little bit of Jallo creeping through under throttle. It's not too bad, but again, that is the copter as well. But yeah, this Split Mini is still great. Of course, it does audio, but it doesn't do it very well, so I always cut it off anyways. And yeah, the Split Mini is a great quality recording, but this is the DVR from the Turtle, and straight away I could notice just a slight increase in the exposure value, so I kept the goggle settings the same, but yeah, it just seems slightly brighter. But I would recommend keeping the settings stock, because the actual HD footage comes out pretty nice, so just reduce the brightness on your goggles and you'll be fine. But you'll see there, same amount of noise on the DVR footage, so I'll put that down to the copter, and it's performing really well. So if we switch to the 1080p 60, you'll notice the field of view is wider, and you can actually spot that bent motor shaft. It's this one here on the left. So yeah, a wider field of view, but I do think that the Split Mini is just a little bit sharper. However, I have to say, I think this is a really good effort from Caddx, and I would recommend this product absolutely. You know, it does have the smaller form factor, and I think in many cases they have done it better. You know, I really like the menu system. We've got the single board layout, we've got the higher field of view. Just, yeah, great options, and it's cheaper as well. And, you know, if it is true about the customer service and the warranty, then, you know, that's on par with Runcam as well. And, you know, when talking about latency, I couldn't really tell a difference between the two. If I was to sort of hand it to one of them, I do think the Caddx maybe just edged it out slightly, but it was really difficult for me to spot. Maybe it's my age or something like that. But yeah, if we just quickly go back to the DVR footage, you'll notice that when it's recording, we've got a white recording icon that flashes, so you want to make sure that your on-screen display isn't up there. And we've also got the red timer as well for how long it has been recording. So it records at 30 megabit, which I think is on par with the Split as well. So yeah, it's very close, I have to say. But if I was to pick quality of image, I would pick the Split Mini, and if I was to pick features, I'd pick the Caddx. But they are both great options, and I hope that this sort of thing just keeps progressing, because it's what we need, you know, especially if you want to stick them on micros and stuff. And I think it's going in a great direction, and I will link it in the below if you wish to get one. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.